here we go, and we are having a conversation today with Aragon Wyatt. Aragon is our youth pastor here at First Baptist Church of Windsor. Aragon's been the youth pastor here for
like 14 years.
14
Involved
years.
in youth ministry, I think about 7 as a youth pastor.
Okay, so we want to talk about youth ministry a little bit today, but also Aragon's got a awesome testimony of God's salvation in his life. Also want to talk about the church a little bit. Aragon's an elder at the church, and some of the things he sees we could be working on, doing better, some threats maybe for the church, also in youth ministry, what that entails. What is it like to be a youth pastor? I know people wonder about that. It's a special breed of people. And some things you'd want to share to parents after you've seen 14 years of Christian parenting and some of the results of some of those things. So hopefully we can get some wisdom from you, Aragon. So first off, let's start with your testimony. How did you come to Christ? What was that like for you?
Yeah, so I was raised in Windsor area, born here, and mother and father loved me, cared about me, and a brother, older brother, about 6 years older, and no religious upbringing. So we very seldomly would pray, and I didn't really understand why. Maybe other people in the family were over, so that's why we did. And we would go to church 2 times a year. So we'd go on Easter, and we would go on Christmas. And I didn't know which one was Jesus' birthday and which one was the resurrection. All I knew was presents and eggs, and I was excited about presents and egg hunts. So we went, and I liked church for that aspect, but didn't really know anything else about who Jesus was or who God was or why I was here, anything like that, and didn't actually care to think about it. Life was good. It was typical suburban family household, and had all the things that thought we needed and wanted as a child, until the age when I turned 12. My parents separated, so my mom told me that we were going on vacation, and it's in the summertime, transitioning from 7th grade to 8th grade. So I packed 1 suitcase, planning on coming back in July, and me and my mom went to Arkansas. My dad and older brother stayed, and July came and we didn't come home, and I thought, well, what's...
So wait, vacation to Arkansas?
Vacation to Arkansas, yeah.
That didn't raise any red flag or anything?
Well, we had family there.
Oh, okay.
So we went to go visit family. Yeah, it wasn't just the middle of nowhere. So we were visiting my aunt and cousins, and my grandma was alive at the time, and it was really nice for a little while. But after about a month, it's like, okay, when we're going home, and my mom said, at the end of summer, so okay, well, we'll just be here until August. No dad, no brother, but we talk on the phone.
Okay. Why didn't Dad go?
What's that?
Why didn't Dad go?
I was 12 years old. I had no concern about why Mom or Dad didn't go.
Interesting.
I knew things were a little bit kind of rocky at home, but this was back in the day when we played outside, and so I don't know what was going on at home because I was outside playing kickball and baseball and football, and come home to eat, and that was about it. We'd be gone all day and come home for food and sleep. Okay. So, but my dad had lost his job. My mom had started working, so that was a transitional change at home. And I think at some point we'll probably get into it. My dad had some drug background, so that was playing a factor in what was going on there. So anyway, vacation, August comes around, and my mom starts talking about enrolling me in school there, and that's where she breaks the news to me that we're not going back home, but we're living in this place now. Wow. And it was really hard for me to take that in. It was a culture shock to go from a town of 27,000 and a town that has everything you could need in it to a town of 250 people, but it's actually a greater size. Like the area is bigger, and there's 2 paved roads. They're both highways, and our house, like one paved road, highway hit the other highway, and our house is at the end of it. So if somebody came all the way through, they'd run into this little house that we lived in, and it was
a T.
Yeah. And so right next to our house was the gas station for our town, and it was closed on Saturday and Sunday. And then there's a little store, like a Quickie Mart kind of store, but old fashioned, and the lights, you'd walked in, you're like, is it open or closed? Because the lights aren't on all the way. And they were closed on Saturdays and Sundays. And those are the only two businesses going on in the town. Those are the only paved roads in the town. We didn't have a car, we didn't have a lot of money. So it was like very, very different. Couldn't go do the normal things, couldn't see the normal people. Had no idea what school was going to be like. People are different in Arkansas than California. So this huge change, taking it in.
So you're lucky because people in Arkansas don't have internet, or they're not going to ever hear this.
They have. The difference is both ways. People in California are weird in some ways, and people in Arkansas are weird in some ways. So
true that. So people in Arkansas think people from California are weird.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. They thought I was weird.
Yeah.
Hot Rod California is what my 8th grade teacher called me.
Hot Rod California.
And they think everyone here is two things: a surfer, and the other thing. I'm not going to say it. Lance told me not to say it before we started the podcast.
All right, so
so that's the thought of Arkansas's thought of California people. Anyways, just a lot of like unsettling of my world and what was normal and what was new, and adjustments. And across the street was this old church that it was like abandoned because they built a new church about a mile down the road. And
before we get into church, how did it go with like your mom saying, was it your dad and I are getting a divorce? What was the conversation like? What kind of went through your mind as that was taking place?
The conversation from what I remember was basically, we're not going home. You're going to school here. And my mom was really sorry, but that's just...
Did she say we're getting a divorce?
No, I don't think so.
Did you figure that out, or?
I think I just understood that. I think it was one of those conversations where not much was said, but a lot was communicated. So I was really angry. I was rebellious for a very short period in my life, and just really upset with my mom, kind of upset with my dad, just upset with life in general, and I had questions. Ooh, thank you. Questions about that I never had before, because everything was good, and when everything's good, you don't question life. So now all of a sudden I'm thinking, like, why is this happening to me? Why can't I go home? Does my life really matter? Does anybody actually care about me? Because the people I thought cared about me the most have now hurt me so deeply. And it was really questions of purpose, questions of meaning, questions of existence, right? Questions of what's happening next. And it was a really good time to have those questions, because I was now in an area where I had nothing to distract me from those questions. There wasn't fun things to do. Like, the fun thing to do was go to Walmart. It was a 45-minute drive away, shop at Walmart, and boy, were we excited about that every 2 weeks. So this church across the street opens up a youth group on Saturday nights from 6 to 10. And my grandma says, you should go to that, check it out. Even though my family there, they believe in God, but they didn't go to church. So I thought, okay, this is something to do. I'd love to have something to do. It's great. I could walk across the street to it. So I go to the youth group there, and it was just a really welcoming environment. It was fun. There's a few other kids that went, and I enjoyed it. I kept going, and it was a lot of fun. But there was also some time to study the Bible and hear about God. And I didn't know anything really about who God was. And the more I understood about who God was, and the more I read the Bible, the more I understood the Bible, the more I interacted with these people, these Christian people, and saw how much they cared about me, just the love that they had, even though they didn't know me from Adam. The more I understood about God, and the more I began to have answers to these questions that I had about, like, why is all this happening in my life? Well, sin is a good understanding of why these things are happening. There were sinful actions that my parents both took and both made that led to the decision for them to separate. And I can understand how sin affects not only the people who make those sinful choices, but it affects the people around them too. Mm-hmm. And I could see it from what God is saying and from the stories in the Bible to my actual life. Mm-hmm. And I'm understanding about meaning, that my life does have meaning, that I was created with purpose. I'm made in the image of God. I'm valuable. I'm understanding about creation. It wasn't just chance, which is what I'd heard in school and just kind of like, guess I believed. I never really thought much about it. I had thought about, what happens when you die and where you're going to go. And I sure hoped in heaven, but I didn't know anything about what heaven was. But now I'm beginning to understand really what heaven is about being with Jesus, and not necessarily about whatever my fantasies of the best life now could be. So that's my story of kind of getting to know who Jesus is and growing up. And through that process, I was going to the youth group on Saturday nights, and I loved that so much that I started going to church on Sunday morning. And they had a Sunday school, so I went to Sunday school, and then I went to church, and I would walk there and I'd walk back. None of my family went. They had a Sunday night service, so I'd walk down there for the Sunday night service, and we'd do that together, and that was a much smaller group. And then they had a Wednesday night service, so I'd go to the Wednesday night service too. So I was at the church every opportunity that I could be at the church where they had an event or anything going on. And a lot of what was taking place was me as like a 13, 14, 15-year-old, and a lot of people that had gray hair that there just was a big age difference. Mm-hmm. They loved me, they cared about me, they checked in on me, but I didn't go there to hang out with friends. I went there because this was real, like I understood who Jesus was and what he saved me from. So what ended up happening was at the youth group one time the pastor came and he asked me about if I'd ever accepted Jesus as my Savior, and I kind of didn't know exactly what he meant with that. Like I thought, well, I believe this, and so he asked if I wanted to pray a prayer of salvation. So he led me in a prayer of salvation, and so that was 13 at that time. But it wasn't really until I think it was maybe about 6 months later that I really felt like that my faith became real. And when I was driving home, my mom was driving home from youth group, and not our car, it's somebody else's car. And I had this feeling, this thought that came over me, like if I died right now, I'm okay. Like I'm okay with where I'm at. I'm okay with the Lord. I know what's where I'm going. And I've always looked at that moment. I don't know if you have this. Do you have moments in your life that you remember everything about that moment? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is one of those moments where I just remember everything about that moment. And I feel like if there was a single point in time, that was probably it, or it was the process of God, me working out my salvation with fear and trembling. So that's a little bit about my testimony. You felt like maybe
at that moment your faith was
like I knew, man. I knew
this is what I believe in. Yeah. This is where I'm going. This is who Jesus is.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I felt like I definitely believed beforehand.
It's a good place to be.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a good place to be. It is. So that's my testimony of salvation, coming to faith.
All right.
Yeah.
Good. Anything after? So you were 13 at the time, so you were freshman in high school?
I was
8th grade, around there?
Yeah, like 8th grade.
Well, Johnny's okay, so 7th, 8th grade. Yeah. Okay. So how did that change? What was that experience like then, going into public high school, being a believer?
Yeah,
smooth
it's
sailing, rocky road.
It's a struggle. Yeah, it was a struggle. So,
because some people, they'll come to Christ in junior high, then they'll realize, man, I'm a real sinner in high school, and then they'll come to Christ again in senior year.
No, I was already a real sinner.
Okay.
So, like for me, sinful behavior is just kind of a pattern and part of my life, and there wasn't growing up. You know, we had rules in our house, but not everything our house considered wrong, or not everything God considered wrong, our household considered wrong. And so we were allowed to do some things that maybe weren't necessarily right. For example, one of the things my dad had told me when I was younger was if I didn't have sex before I turned 12, that I might be gay. Mm-hmm. And so this was a thing as like a young man, I think I was like 10 at the time, where like this is a negative thing being put into my mind as a 10-year-old, like I must do this because I don't want my dad to think about me this way. Mm-hmm. So there's things like that play into the struggle, but there was already a realization of what God had saved me from. I listened to like really bad rap music, Eminem and 50 Cent and this group ICP, and so I had all these CDs. So when I got saved, like I knew that was all wrong. I didn't know everything that was wrong, so I just threw them out the window. Like one day driving, I'm like, I can't listen to this anymore. But I was littering. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, just got rid of it. Another thing, like shortly after getting saved, where my aunt's house was right on that corner, so the highway ended into it. And it was this old, like, ran down house. I asked my aunt, can I spray paint on the house, Jesus Saves? Like, a bunch of people are going to see this. So she's like, sure. Or my grandma said, sure. So I got up on the roof and it had the A-frame. So I spray painted Jesus Saves, like, big red. And you could see it from, like, far away. And so it was super cool. Like, everyone saw it. But the pastor at the time said, man, when Jesus saved you, he saved you from your head to your toes. But it was still a struggle being in high school and being around, other sinners, and I was still a sinner, and I still had temptation. Girls were a temptation. My body's going through a lot of changes, and there's a lot of testosterone and a lot of wanting to, please yourself and wanting to impress your friends, and so there was a real battle between what I looked like as a Christian, kind of at church, and what I looked like as a Christian, at school. And I see that a lot with students who grew up in the faith as well, where there's this real battle, this real struggle that takes place between, like, I want to be this way, the things I want to do, I don't do, and the things I don't want to do, I do. And I think that that's actually a good place to be in. You talked about yesterday in your message, like some people are in a place where they're okay with their sin, like they've made peace with their sin. And I think the struggle is good when you know that there's a struggle and you're working towards it. And so that was a place that I was in for quite a while. It's like, am I ever going to get victory over, pornography? Am I ever going to get victory over, cussing or whatever it is, And it was one of those things where you have to begin to take out the bad things and renew your thinking, right? Renew your thinking and put on the new things. But I wasn't mature enough at the time, and probably it would have been more beneficial having somebody who was coming alongside and discipling me to help me through that I didn't have. So there's a lot of wrestling kind of on my own. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Let's talk about drugs a little bit.
Drugs, great.
Did you ever do drugs?
What are we considering drugs? To clarify.
Not caffeine.
I do a lot of caffeine. I do so much caffeine that the doctor said I should limit it to 1 cup of coffee a day.
Really?
Yeah.
Make sure I don't see that doctor.
Yeah.
Well,
are we counting marijuana as a drug? That's what I want to
know. Yeah,
know.
let's count marijuana as a drug.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll go federal.
Okay, all right. Yes, I have tried marijuana. That's the only drug.
That's the only one? Okay.
Yeah.
But you had some drugs in your family. And so your dad was doing drugs.
Yeah, my dad was doing drugs.
Did your dad die from drugs?
He did die from drugs.
Okay.
Yeah, but that was later on.
Okay.
My dad, he was for the first part of his life a criminal.
Okay.
He did drugs. He sold drugs. He robbed houses. He sold the things that he robbed.
Did you know that as a kid?
Yeah, I knew that as a kid. So, like at 5 years old, I knew what marijuana was. It was in our house.
Yeah.
People came over.
But did you know your dad was like stealing stuff? And
when I was younger, he wasn't robbing people anymore. He had a job as an auto body man.
Okay.
But when my brother was younger, my dad spent a year and a half in prison when my brother was younger.
Okay.
And then he spent some other time in jail when I was in high school.
Okay.
Another year.
Okay.
There was a time in high school where we would come back to California for the summers, me and my mom. And
was your brother out of the house by then, or was he?
No, he was still at the house.
Living in California, or
he was living in California. He never lived
in Arkansas.
He had lived there actually before me and my mom went there.
Okay.
For a short period of time.
Okay.
But there was a time where both my dad and brother were in jail, and my mom was living with another man in Santa Rosa.
Okay.
And so I had this house in Windsor all to myself, like 16 years old.
Okay.
For the summer.
Yeah.
And it was not the best thing for a 16-year-old man to have.
Yeah.
So child, I should say.
I'd say most of my sin started at 16. Like as far as like doing some bad stuff, I'd say 16 was the start.
Yeah.
Okay. What about drugs and like one of the things I've been seeing with your generation, your era, there's probably been over 10 deaths from drug overdose. Did you see that? So you moved back here.
Yeah, so I moved back here. We would come back every summer, and
okay.
I stayed my junior year for the first part.
Okay.
My mom stayed.
And you were going to Windsor High School?
No, I was going to Montgomery. So my mom had met Sean, and
okay.
she moved in with him, and I was like, I want to go back to Arkansas, because now that was where my church family was,
okay.
and friends, and like that was not home.
Okay.
And but she met this guy and stayed here. Well, she actually knew Sean, but they started dating. And so I tried it for a semester, living with him and having that house in Windsor kind of to myself. And the next semester I went back to Arkansas and did a semester there kind of by myself and with my mom's old boyfriend. So I had a different house to myself, the one we were at. My family was living in Texas at the time that was there. And so I did the second part of my junior year was in Arkansas without either of my parents.
Okay.
And then I realized, no, I got to be back with family. So senior year, I was back here. And drugs is what we're talking about. I got distracted.
Well, drugs and how that relates to Windsor and high school.
Yeah, so what I saw with my dad used harder drugs as well, and my brother, there's some drug use there, is that I didn't want any part of that. Like, when you can see the negative effects, for me, I'm not the kind of person who's like, I gotta try it to find out if it's bad. I'm like, no, I can see that it's bad. I can see that this has ruined lives. I can see, the hurt from this. I've experienced this. So I didn't want any part of it.
Okay. So what about Windsor High School, just the drug problem that was there? Did you see any of that? Were you aware of it?
I never went to Windsor.
Oh, you never went to Windsor?
No.
Okay.
I actually went a couple times just to hang out.
Okay. How about at Montgomery? Was there drugs at Montgomery that you were aware of?
I wasn't cool, man.
Okay.
At Montgomery, I took 3 PE classes, and that was my time in Montgomery.
Okay.
So,
did you graduate from high school?
I did graduate. Yeah.
Where'd you graduate?
I did I graduated through.
We should have done this before we hired you as pastor.
You should have did a background check.
We should have done
I've already admitted to using drugs. I graduated through Montgomery, but I did the Independent Studies program.
Hey, swim 2 laps, kid. We'll give you a degree.
All the transitioning from Arkansas to California, like there's so much more of that story where my dad had been to jail before, so we had to leave school early. I had to leave all my classes early in high school. So, like in high school, you leave, you don't take your finals, so you don't get credit. So I came back, and then when I went back to Arkansas, I had to take these tests, and I took all the tests for like the important classes, but I forgot about PE, and so I didn't get credit for my PE, and so that's why I had to take a bunch of PE when I came back. California has different regulations for it. But I did independent studies through Montgomery, but I actually would go to Ridgeway to get my curriculum.
There's a pool at Ridgeway.
Ridgeway, a pool.
That's where the pool is.
Oh, I don't know.
I thought maybe that was all connected. I was going to try to connect some dots.
I don't know.
So you got it all figured out.
We got it all figured out. I did graduate. Went to the JC.
Okay. Good. All right. Let's push.
Drugs in school, high school. The people I hung out with didn't use drugs. Wasn't around drugs. Didn't want to be around drugs.
All right.
Because I'd seen what it done in my family.
I think like a good even documentary would be something about Windsor and the drugs, because you knew about the drug, or you know about the drug problem that's gone on, and kind of an underground thing, and people are losing their lives, and it'd be an interesting documentary just so people could learn about from a parental level. You need to do a better job of knowing what your kids are doing, but then also a person that's 18, 19, 20 years old that's dabbling in meth or other kind of harder drugs, the impact that could have on their life. Like this ends in death, right? And that's where people need to see that, and that's where Christ could really help them, right, recover and be saved and delivered from that kind of lifestyle.
Yeah.
So, anyway. All right. How about, so from high school you go to the junior college, now you're a part of ministry here at First Baptist Church. Kind of talk about that life at church, maybe your relationship with Jeff Marshall, Tim Swanson.
Okay.
The early years.
The pre-Lance?
PL. BL.
So, yeah, I got plugged in at First Baptist Church because Amanda Green lived in my neighborhood.
Green. Okay.
And she invited like the group of us to go to youth group, and I was like, sweet. I didn't know where the churches were at in Windsor or anything about church. The only one we'd ever gone to was Our Lady of Guadalupe.
Okay.
And I can't even remember the name of the other one we checked out one time. So I went in First Baptist Church youth group. Tim was the youth pastor. Jeff Marshall was a youth leader. Several other guys, and just really enjoyed it. Connected well, and they cared on me and loved on me, and they'd ask me questions, and they'd follow up the next week. They remembered the stuff that I told them, and I thought that's really neat. Like they actually care about what I'm saying. So that's how I got plugged in at First Baptist Church, and
Tim Swanson probably still remembers those questions he asked you and your answers.
He probably does. Yeah. I still remember some of his answers because they were so funny. Me and my friends joke about some of his answers.
I need to do one of these with Tim.
Yeah, Tim would be good.
We could talk about heart surgery.
Oh gosh,
all kinds of stuff. All right. So anyway,
well, you know what topic would definitely come up? They call Tim the pastor of something.
Yes. Jake encouraged us to stay on point.
Yeah, he did.
Right?
We'll stay on point.
Yes.
So that's how I got plugged in at First Baptist.
Okay, through youth ministry?
Yeah, through the youth ministry. And when I was like 15, the pastor in Arkansas asked me to lead the Sunday night like message, like give it, and I knew nothing about like giving a sermon, or I didn't like school. My penmanship was terrible. You guys, if you've seen it, it's really bad. So I did this message, and like in preparing for it, I was reading Matthew and came across the Great Commission. And when I read that, I felt like it was like highlighted, like just for me, and I know it's for everybody. Mm-hmm. But you know, sometimes you read a scripture and it's like this verse really is speaking to me. Mm-hmm. And so I felt like at that point that for me, my life's calling was ministry and telling people about who Jesus was, and specifically like young people. Like I wanted to tell people my age about who Jesus was. So fast forward many years later, I get plugged in here, and
just Great Commission, just so people who might not be aware of that.
Yeah. So Jesus says, "Go into all the nations, teaching them about who I am, and baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. That He's with us always, and that all authority in heaven and earth has been given to Him." Yeah. So those verses are backwards, but
that's all right. Yeah, that's got the
gist of it right there.
Good. Okay.
And so I felt like that was my life's mission, like tell people about who Jesus is, make disciples, and this is what happened in my life, and like I'm super excited about it. And I think that a lot of Christians have that when they first get saved. A lot of people have that, like kind of what you might call on fire for Jesus, or it's the newness of it, like this whole new understanding about life and who I am and God. And it's an amazing place to be. So, being a part of First Baptist youth ministry, and I just stuck around. Tim asked me when I graduated if I wanted help with youth leadership. I was super excited about that, so I volunteered, and the church needed a maintenance person part-time, so I'm like, great. I started doing maintenance here, taking out the garbage and cleaning the bathrooms, and serving the youth ministry. So that was about a year of doing that, and our church had gone through a big transition at the time. We had lost a couple of the pastors, resigned, and Tim had taken on more responsibilities of the church from administration and less with youth ministry. And so I got to begin to take on more with the youth ministry, and Tim approached me about leading the junior high ministry, and Tad approached me about teaching PE for the school. So I accepted both of those jobs as part-time jobs, 20 hours a week. And then what's neat is like you get older, you can look back, but God just kept opening these doors for like where He wanted me to be, and all I had to do was like walk through them. It's really cool. Just not.
It's pretty simple.
When you don't struggle with God, like when you say, okay, this is what you want, I'm just gonna walk through the door that you opened up for me. And so it's much easier when you look back though to see how that was, because there was a period where I thought, I'm going to JC, I'm studying law enforcement. I thought, that'd be really neat to be an officer. But all the while, God was opening up these doors for me here at the church. Yeah.
Maybe if you would have had a childhood of a big house and big vacations and lots of financial stuff, might not have been as easy to look at a junior high part-time youth pastor and a PE teacher. It might have been simple because it was simple. You weren't in your mind. You weren't thinking, how am I going to set up my life to, have such big, grandiose, like this is good.
Yeah.
And I'm getting paid to do this. It might not be $100,000, but it's good,
Yeah, I like to say I accomplished like my life's goals at 25 or something. I wanted to be a youth pastor, and I became one. Yeah, and that's what I really wanted to do, and serving in the youth ministry and influencing teenagers to know who Jesus is and to know that God created them, that He loves them and cares about them. Like, that's what I'm passionate about. That's what I enjoy. I enjoy hanging out with them. I enjoy encouraging them, letting them know they're valued and accepted. Like, I love it.
Yeah. Think of Ecclesiastes 11, where follow the desires of your heart and the delight of your eyes, and that's what you did.
Yeah, that's what I did.
It was good.
It is.
Yeah, it's cool. And so the call to ministry, was it you felt like God at one point was saying, Aragon, this is what I want you to do, or was it just kind of a general, kind of in this lane, and I'm just going to stay in this lane? I feel blessed. People I'm ministering to seem blessed, and
yeah. I know. I felt like it was like a pastoral call. But I didn't really know what that looked like. Like, my family doesn't have any history of this, and so I didn't really know like what to do, or I need to go to seminary. I didn't even know what seminary was, and so I just kind of did what was next in front of me. It's like, well, I need to go to college. Yeah. And so did a couple of years of the JC, and it's like, well, to go to seminary, I need a bachelor's degree. So a couple of years at Sonoma State, and all the while, God just kept opening the doors, even though I thought about some other things. Whenever someone would ask me when I was younger, like, what I wanted to do, that's what I tell them, like, I want to be a pastor. When I say younger, I mean high school age. So you felt that even when you were 16, 17 years old? Yeah. Struggling through sin, but you still thought, I'll be a pastor. Yeah, it was weird. Yeah. But there was this expectation, like, well, I'm not good enough. Yeah. Because I know that I'm still struggling with sin. Yeah. It's like, maybe someday when I overcome this, then. Yeah. So I guess I could become a pastor after I die if I kept that. If I kept that line of thinking. Yeah. Cool. What about, just for our church, some strengths, like we'll just go one. So one strength you see of First Baptist, one weakness you see, one opportunity, one threat you see. So we'll start with a strength. What's a strength you see at our church? Yeah, I think a strength would be, there's an appeal to families. Okay. That we've got a really solid group of families. Younger kids. There's kind of programs I feel like we have programs for everybody, but programs aren't first. Like, people are first, but there's programs available. But we are real. You're a real dude. I'm a real dude. People, they know the real me, and they know the real you. Yeah. And they have my cell phone number. They can call and text me. It's not like they see me on Sunday and that's it. And so I think that's a big strength, is this appeal to families and kind of the realness and authenticity of life here. Yeah. What about a weakness? Boy, I spent some time thinking about this one. I wanted to say diversity at first, but I think we're like as diverse as our area is, our church is, because it's like you like more diversity, but you can only be as diverse as your area is. Yeah. And if we had if Iglesia Vita, if we all met together, we'd be super diverse for Windsor. I guess I think maybe goals and future and kind of, I don't want to use the word vision, but just like, I feel like we've spent a lot of time as a church kind of looking at what's going on right now, and some of that's just kind of what's been dealt to us, and less of thinking about what we want to see accomplished. Like, you came into this thing with this huge building loan, and there's a lot of problems going on, right, to address and work through, and changes, and you got to go slow with changes because people don't like changes. So I have appreciated a lot your and the elder board's kind of thinking through, what do we want to see accomplished, and working towards that. That's been good. I think as a church too, even just some goals in our individual walk with the Lord of what do we want to accomplish in our personal lives. our witness, what kind of impact are we having with our friends, with our family, with the people we're encountering. And so I think there's a little bit of that. Maybe that's just me where I'm like,
it's part of my...
I'm not real goal-oriented.
Well, and I came into a church that had a pretty clear vision in place that we're still trying to complete that vision that was started before I even came here. So like the building, this room we're in, was part of that vision, right? It's a big building, education building. We still probably have 15 years on that loan, and I don't want to put the church in more debt to say, here's our next building project.
Yeah.
Let's
but
work
we
hard
did
we did, yeah. We got the parsonage rebuilt. But so we want to see the school, be as good as it can be, and God's preserved the school through other Christian schools not making it. The preschool's doing really well. So that's part of that vision that was started a long time ago that we're still trying to see and use, for God's kingdom. So God's bringing in a lot of people every day. Well, not right now through the coronavirus thing, but just people are coming. 400 people are on campus every day, and most of those aren't probably even Christian people, right? So,
and they're paying for their children, to learn about
Jesus.
Lord.
Yeah. So
they may not look at it like that, but that's part of it.
Yeah, and then the other part would be like the Spanish ministry, where that was a vision somebody had before I came, but I think it's a good vision to have, and so we're still trying to get that church as mature as she can be, and still discipling people from First Baptist. And so I would love to see, like, kind of have a clean slate and say, here's where we need to go. But a lot of things have already been started, and we're trying to be faithful to see those things out. So
that's what I feel like is kind of just dealing with the cards that have been dealt. And working through that. But I think
I've had that before. Like, what's the vision for the church? And I'm like, we kind of have a vision, and we're working towards that. And if I need to help you understand that again, I don't mind working through that. But I kind of came into somebody else's vision, and I'm trying to.
I want to stay away from the word vision, like future goals, because I feel like at an individual level too, within the church.
Well, I think it goes back to Jesus' vision. Jesus' vision for the church is Matthew 28, right? Build the kingdom.
No, that's the
make
vision
disciples.
For me.
Just for Aragon. And so I think that's what we're doing the best we can to fulfill Jesus' vision for his church, to make disciples. And so we're not perfect at it, but that's our heart and trying to do. Youth ministry is another big thing we're working towards. So let's so opportunities.
Salvation. There's so many people in our town, in our area, that don't know the Lord, that I don't think they're hostile to the gospel like maybe 10 years ago or longer, but they're ambivalent at the least towards it. And so I think that's so much opportunity with people who they don't know anything about who the Lord is, who Jesus
Fields
is.
are white for harvest.
Yes. Yes.
A lot of opportunity.
Yep, I think that's the biggest opportunity. I think threat, societal pressure. So I feel like the biggest threat is culture influencing the church with regards to doctrine. I feel like an opportunity is culture influencing the church with regard to methods.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is, I think as a church, we need to change and adapt to culture with our methods. For example, with the coronavirus, right? We're adapting to what's going on around us, and the culture is tech savvy, and so we are using technology to promote the gospel. We're not changing the gospel. We're just using a different means of getting it out there. And
great example.
That's good. But what's not good is when the church says, you know what, the culture doesn't like that God's word says X, Y, and Z. So let's either not talk about X, Y, and Z, or let's twist God's word to say, you know what, it really doesn't say this about X, Y, and Z. And I think that's, to me, what I'm seeing as a greater threat to the church is really kind of the church itself, like collapsing in, giving way to the culture around them.
Yeah. How do you deal with that on a youth level where you know?
So I'll give you an example this happened recently. Some of our students who plug into our church on Sunday morning, their families are here. They also go to other youth groups. And I heard some of the teaching that had taken place at one of the other youth groups. And it was not solid teaching. And so it was just really frustrating to me that, first of all, why are we talking about that at youth ministry? Like, you don't even need to get into that level of stuff. Second, if your doctrine and opinion isn't like really solid and firm,
can you give an example of that? Like what was said?
I don't really want to call anybody out or
we don't know what church or youth group.
Oh, we know. I prefer not to.
Okay.
Think. Yeah. There's been some bad ones though, and it's just really sad because I feel like for me I've got to go back to all of the students who are part of our church and like talk to them about this, because now they've heard from another pastor or Christian leader that this particular sin is okay and the church has it wrong, or they've heard like, you know what, this book of the Bible, it really wasn't written by God. This one is, or this isn't a true story. It's actually a narrative, or a parable, sorry. And so I think that's really bad, especially when you have a youth ministry, you have students who know the Lord, you have students who don't know the Lord, and they're coming and they're hearing alternating views from Pastor Aragon and other pastors, and it's like, well, what's really true if they don't have it figured out in the church? So that's how I've seen it in the youth ministry. Okay. I never called that person. These pastors I've heard about. I thought about it, and I thought, I just don't want to argue. Like, I can see this as being an argument, and that's not what it's about. I'm just going to talk to my people about it and work through it with them. Make sure they understand like what the Scripture says. Show it to them. Yeah. Let them decide for themselves. Yeah. So.
Okay. Let's jump down. What is it like being a youth pastor?
It's really cool. It's really fun.
What are some of the challenges of being a youth pastor?
The challenges are when you're dealing with hardships, they're different than an adult, because an adult they make their own decisions, right? They don't have parents to answer to, or they don't have to follow obey their parents and honor their adults have to honor their parents, but they don't have to. I can't just tell a student do this when their parent maybe is telling them something different. Okay. Whereas you could just tell an adult, you need to do this. Yeah.
And so that fine line of
there's a fine line between like, I'm
parents.
Parents for the shepherds.
Yeah.
For the kids.
Yeah.
We're coming alongside parents. But sometimes parents don't make the best decisions. I don't make the best decisions for a parent of my own kid. And so there's a fine line there. And just taking on, I think, their hardships and their burdens. As in pastoral ministry, I think about these things when I go home. I'm praying about these things, and they hurt. Knowing what's happened to someone or what someone's going through or dealing with, and a strong desire to want to help. And then how much can I really take on too is another piece of that. So that's one of the challenges.
Nice knowing we're under shepherds and not the shepherd.
I know it is, but that's something I don't remind myself enough of. I should write it on the mirror. Because for whatever reason, I have this. I want to help more probably than I can. Yeah. And then I take on more than I probably should. Yeah. So, I think that's the challenge: is an emotional kind of mental toll, burden that comes. There's a challenge just with patience. Like my wife, she says that I am like the most patient person at youth group and youth ministry and church. And I've had so many people in church tell me like how patient I am. And that's because they don't know me at home. Like they don't see me how I talk to my kids and wife sometimes. And that's something that I struggle with, and like is a constant prayer. Like I need to be patient, and I've grown a lot in that area. But so that's a struggle, just being patient with junior hires, because
you should have a youth group one night and go, I'm going to treat you guys like I'd treat you if you're mine at home.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody would come back. The like when my patience finally runs out with a junior high boy, I'll put my hand on their shoulder right here and just give them a good squeeze. Yeah. And it's a spot where it doesn't leave a mark or anything, so parents don't know about it. And but it just really gets their attention.
You know what Jeff Marshall's saying right now?
He's saying that's a good move.
No, don't say that.
I know
you're liable now.
Yeah. So Johnny's felt the little hand,
and I totally am in favor of that. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. So that's kind of the max of when I lose my patience. Yeah. It's just you need to settle down. Yeah. But yeah, having patience and kind of bearing their burdens, and that's kind of the hardships I think of youth ministry, just experiencing and seeing what they go through.
I feel like when I started ministry, I was a college pastor, and college students at Santa Rosa Bible Church, they had their choice. If you don't want to go to college group, you don't want to keep going to church, you don't have to go to church. You're 18 now, make your own decisions. Where I felt like in high school, kids were told by the parents of Santa Rosa Bible Church, like, you're going to youth group. Yeah. And I feel like things have shifted now to where it's kind of like what I dealt with is kind of like high school group now, where parents, I feel like, give a lot more freedom to their kids to make that choice, rather than 10 years ago, you went to youth group if you were in a Christian home. And so is that what you're seeing? Is that a challenge?
I think a lot of the things that probably college age people were dealing with, high school age people are dealing with now, and a lot of things high school age people, junior hires are dealing with now. The other thing in that I want to talk about is expectations along with that. But there are some students who have to be there. They have to be at youth group, and I know they have to be there. They know they have to be there. We've had that conversation, and so that's just kind of is what it is, and I'm able to have a good relationship with them, even though I know they don't want to be there. And there's some students who really want to be there, and they just like look forward to this highlight of the week. And so, there's a mixed group of students. Have to be there, don't want to be there, do want to be there, are engaged, are not engaged. So ministering at different levels, whereas mostly adults, I think they want to be there, Yeah. Or at least they're making a conscious choice to go.
Yeah. I guess for our church, one of the things I would like to see is the parents be more supportive of the youth ministry. Yeah. It's a big thing we're doing as a church, and I just feel like,
I feel like parents are very supportive, and if we have a need, parents can get behind that. They can help out with things. They are giving. But not in the area of telling the kids, like, this is priority, and you're going to go to youth group even if your friends aren't going, or even if you aren't enjoying it. Or
for me as a parent, God's given me the task to shepherd my children. This is what's best for you. Yeah. What's best for you is to go be with other young people and learn about God. And I'm just trusting that I'm doing the right thing before God and doing that. And what I hope is, like, if my child kind of resisted it, well, they still went because I made them go. They were blessed by going. Yeah. And so I think it's sometimes as parents, we're telling our kids to do what's right because that's our job. And we're hoping and trusting that God will bless their obedience in that. And so that's kind of where I'm at as a parent.
Yeah, and I appreciate the parents who are like that. Yeah. Who I think for the most part,
I think it's cool that you're aware of it too, and you're aware of some of the kids that are just, I gotta be here, you know.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Yeah,
it's good.
Cool.
So youth ministry is exciting. It's fun. I love camps. I love winter camp. I love trips. I like the activities. I like having the most special thing is when you explain the gospel to somebody, because I know who comes regularly, and it's obvious, you know, we usually have 20 to 30 people. So if someone comes who's new, and usually this friend who brought them will say like they don't go to church, or you know, they've never been to youth group or whatever. So just having a chance to explain the gospel, like,
and you think about yourself as a 13-year-old kid in Arkansas going to church and learn about God, right? And
it's that's so neat.
All right. Well, buddy, good. This was awesome to spend an hour with you and get to know you better, and hopefully the church and people watching this get to know you better and understand youth ministry and church, and it's good. So thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, buddy.
All right.
It's a wrap.